You weren't too much. You weren't not enough. You were just seeking love from the very place your wound came from. And Carl Jung understood this better than most. He said we don't just fall in love with a person, we are pulled toward a pattern, a mirror, a reenactment. We chase what hurt us, not because we're broken, but because the soul wants to finish the story differently. You think you're being rejected in the present, but what's really happening is this. Your nervous system is trying to fix the past. That unavailable person, that cold silence, that inconsistency, it reminds your subconscious of someone, and your inner child thinks, if I can just get them to love me, maybe I was never unlovable. But that's not love. That's a trauma loop. And Jung warned us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. You'll call it bad luck. You'll say, all the good ones are taken. You'll tell yourself you're just a romantic. But here's the truth. You are not cursed in love. You are repeating a lesson that hasn't been integrated. You don't chase because they're special. You chase because your wound is louder than your wisdom. And here's what Jung would want you to remember. You don't need to prove your worth to someone who can't see it. Their inability to love you doesn't reflect your lovability. It reflects their limitation. Let that be enough. We often confuse emotional intensity with emotional connection. The butterflies, the obsession, the highs and lows. It feels alive, right? But Carl Jung would say, not everything that feels alive is good for your soul. Sometimes chaos feels like home, because that's where you first learned to love. You weren't taught to feel safe in love. You were taught to work for love, to prove yourself, to shrink yourself, to become what they needed, even if it meant abandoning yourself. That's not chemistry, that's survival, and Jung saw the danger in it. Because if you keep chasing the same dynamic, you'll keep recreating the same heartbreak, different face, same wound. You're not healing by staying, you're relapsing. And here's where it gets even deeper. Sometimes the people we chase aren't even capable of love in the first place. They breadcrumb affection, withhold connection, punish vulnerability, not because you're unworthy, but because they're emotionally unavailable. You're trying to draw water from an empty well, trying to heal in a place that only reopens your wound. Carl Jung believed this wasn't random, that these patterns arise so we can see them, bring them into awareness, and break the spell. Because when you finally stop chasing, you're not just walking away from a person, you're walking away from an old identity, an identity that was built on earning love, pleasing, performing, pursuing, and now you're choosing peace, stillness, self-respect, not because it's easy, but because your nervous system is done mistaking chaos for love. This is the beginning of self-repair. This is where the healing starts. So why do we stay? Why do we keep chasing those who reject, abandon, or neglect us? Because the pain is familiar. And in Jungian psychology, the familiar often becomes the unconscious comfort zone. Even if it hurts, it's not about logic. It's about pattern repetition. Jung called it repetition compulsion. The unconscious drive to repeat early relational wounds, in the hope that this time it will end differently. This time you think, they'll choose me, they'll change, I'll finally be enough. But that's the trap. You're not seeking love. You're seeking resolution, closure, validation, redemption, and in doing so, you hand your power over to the person who hurt you. You keep asking the wound to heal you, and all it does is deepen. But here's the truth Jung wanted you to remember. You don't need them to choose you. You need to choose yourself, because the inner child within you, the one who learned to earn love through effort, is still waiting for someone to rescue them. But they're not coming, because the person you're waiting for is you. You are the one who can break the cycle. You are the one who can walk away You are the one who can stop negotiating with people who cannot meet you. And when you finally do, everything changes. You stop chasing. You stop performing. You stop proving. And in that stillness, you remember, you were never too much. You were never not enough. You were simply in a space that could not hold your light. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." This is your moment to bring the unconscious pattern into the light, to stop calling it fate, and to start calling it finished. Healing begins the moment you stop blaming yourself for someone else's inability to love you. Read that again. This is the wound Jung said most of us carry silently. We confuse rejection with reflection. We believe how others treat us is a mirror of our worth, but it's not. It's a mirror of their capacity, and often, people can only meet you as deeply as they've met themselves. So when they disappear, betray, ghost, or belittle, it doesn't mean you're unlovable. It means they were never able to hold love in the first place. And the tragedy? We often attach our self-worth to their behavior. But here's the reframe Jung offers. Instead of asking, "Why didn't they love me?" ask, "Why did I feel I had to earn love in the first place?" That question leads you inward, to the original blueprint, the childhood imprint, the first heartbreak that taught you, love is something you perform for, not something you receive freely. And once you become aware of that, you're no longer stuck in the loop. You stop chasing ghosts. You stop begging for breadcrumbs. You stop turning emotional starvation into a spiritual lesson. Because now you see the truth. You were always enough. They just weren't ready. Carl Jung said, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you." That's why some of the deepest pain comes from being with the wrong people, not being alone. So if your presence isn't met with reverence, withdraw it. If your love is ignored, stop offering it on an altar that was never sacred. You don't heal by proving your worth. You heal by reclaiming it. And that begins the moment you stop chasing. Because you're not here to convince someone to see you. You're here to remember that you were never invisible. You just gave your light to someone too blind to hold it. You don't just chase them because of who they are. You chase them because of who you were taught to be. Let that land. Because Carl Jung understood something few people talk about. We don't just fall for people randomly. We're drawn, compulsively, even magnetically, to those who reflect our unconscious wounds back to us. It's not love, it's repetition. A psychological loop called the repetition compulsion. We go back to the scene of the original emotional crime, hoping that this time we'll win. This time they'll stay. This time will be enough. This time we'll get it right. But this time is just like the last, because it was never about them. It was about you, trying to rewrite a script someone else gave you, trying to reverse a story that never should have been written. This is why you chase, not because you're weak, but because you're still trying to outrun the moment someone convinced you that love must be earned. Jung's work helps us see this clearly. He said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." So many of us call heartbreak bad luck. We say, "Why do I always fall for people like this?" But the real answer? Because something deep inside is still searching for resolution. Not connection, resolution. You don't want their love. You want the ending to be different. You want your wound to be chosen, to be seen, to be enough. But wounds don't heal through repetition. They heal through revelation, through recognition, through the radical decision to stop chasing someone and start remembering yourself. You don't need to beg anyone to stay. You need to stop abandoning yourself. So stop chasing, not to punish them, but to come back to the only person who ever needed your loyalty. You, because real love doesn't require a performance. It only requires presence. And once you remember who you are, you'll never run after someone who forgot. There's a certain kind of silence that hurts more than words. You text them, they leave you on read. You open up, they shut down. You overthink every response, while they never even notice your absence. That's not love. That's emotional starvation. But the truth is, you accepted crumbs because your inner child was conditioned to believe that crumbs were a feast. This is what Jung meant when he said the psyche contains both the wound and the healer. Inside you, right now, are the parts that crave approval, and the parts that know they deserve peace. But only one of them can run your life, because the longer you chase someone who hurts you, the further you get from your own wholeness. Let me say that again. Every time you abandon your truth to chase someone else's validation, you reinforce the belief that your worth comes from being chosen. It doesn't. Your worth isn't something someone else gives you. It's something you reclaim. Jung didn't teach us to demonize others, but to integrate the shadow. So ask yourself, what part of me believes I need their love to feel whole? What past moment am I trying to rewrite through this person? You don't need to hate them. You need to understand why you stayed. Because once you see it, you don't need revenge. You need release. Not closure, clarity, not a second chance, self-respect. The real power? It's not in proving yourself. It's in removing yourself. It's in waking up one day and realizing you don't need the love of someone who taught you to doubt your own. That is the spiritual maturity Carl Jung tried to teach. That true transformation begins when you stop searching for the answer in their eyes and start listening to the quiet voice within your own soul. That's the voice you abandoned, and that's the one you're here to reclaim. Because healing doesn't happen when they come back. It happens when you do. And here's the hardest part. They might never say sorry. They might never realize what they did. They might go on with their life like you never even mattered. And yet, your healing is not waiting on their awareness. It's waiting on your decision. The decision to stop reopening the wound just to see if it still hurts. The decision to stop expecting depth from people committed to their own shallowness. The decision to grieve. And then get up. Because grief is sacred. But staying stuck is a choice. Carl Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Let this moment be the one where you stop mistaking pain for passion, where you stop chasing what left, and start building what lasts. You weren't meant to beg. You weren't meant to prove. You were meant to remember. Remember who you were before the wound, before the story that said you're only worthy if someone else chooses you. Let that story die, and you'll rise, not with vengeance, but with vision, with silence that speaks louder than any goodbye, with self-respect so deep no breadcrumb ever tempts you again. You don't heal by fixing the connection, you heal by fixing the pattern. And maybe that's why you found this video, not to make them understand you, but to finally understand yourself. So if you're done repeating pain in the name of love, let go, not with bitterness, but with bravery. You're not chasing, you're not waiting, you're returning to your truth, to your center, to yourself. If this touched something real in you, you already know this wasn't just another video. It was a mirror, a moment of remembering. And if you're still here, maybe you're finally done abandoning yourself to feel loved. So speak it. I return to me. Write it below. Not for likes, not for them, but for you, to mark the shift. Like this, to anchor it. Subscribe to honor it. Share it with someone you know is stuck in that same loop. Because this isn't the end. It's your return. This is Unshadowed. Let's keep going.